This coming panel discussion will actually bring together corporate leaders who transform legal risk into operational stability. So please join me in giving a big round of applause to our esteemed panelists and the moderator of this session. Welcome all. I pass the mic to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here in Riyadh for this very impressive, very well-attended, arbitration-focused production. My name is Thomas Wilson, and I'm moderating this quite accomplished panel to address the question of corporate calm. Our panel will explore how major organizations, such as those which employ the four lawyers to my left, how they manage uncertainty, minimize disputes, and ensure predictable outcomes. I, for one, am interested in this session and was delighted to have been asked to moderate it. The reason being, most of us in the room, we're service providers. We're arbitrators. We are outside counsel. We are employed by arbitral institutions. And the service we provide, of course, is to our clients. And the four lawyers that I'm privileged to sit with today are a great cross-section of the client base that uses our service. And of course, as service providers, it's quite important for us, first and foremost, to understand the needs of our clients. And so I hope through this session we will all learn something about what is particularly important to our clients on a day-to-day basis and how they deal with the challenges that they face, and ideally that will help all of us better serve them. I'll just pause for a moment to introduce everyone. We have to my immediate left Dr. Ghassan Shauli. Ghassan is the Chief Legal and Governance Officer at Aqua Power. To his left, Mr. Rajagopal Venkatakrishnan. Venkat is the Vice President and General Counsel of India's Reliance Industries. To his left, Ms. Cici Yang, the Vice President and General Counsel of Volvo in China. And finally, to her left, Dr. Abdelmozen Zuhair, the Director of International Litigation and ADR at Aramco. So we'll start our conversation by focusing on the management of uncertainty. What is it? What causes it? And how do these panelists and their companies deal with it? I'd like to start with you, Abdelmozen. In your team at Saudi Aramco, I wonder what tools you use to reduce and manage uncertainty in these, of course, very turbulent, uncertain geopolitical times.
Well, thank you, Tom, and allow me first to welcome our audience members and my esteemed fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As you know, the environment that we work in today all is growing more interconnected and increasingly complex. As a result, disputes today span a wide range of stakeholders, jurisdictions, and regulatory considerations. Our approach in Saudi Aramco for dealing with these risks is a structured and proactive approach that supports predictability. Generally, in our contracts, be it an LSTK contract for a construction project or a shareholders agreement for a joint venture, sanctions and trade compliance is a key matter that is dealt with outside of the dispute resolution clauses, but dedicated provisions that set out prescriptive obligations on our counterparties to comply with these laws. And violations of these provisions could constitute material breaches and trigger termination or exit events. In particular, in our LSTK contracts, we impose broad indemnities on our contractors to ensure that, any liabilities stemming from these kinds of violations are protected. We're protected from those, as well as these termination and exit events being triggered not only when the contractor is in violation, but when their actions can cause us to be in violation of these sanctions laws. Obviously, these remedies are without prejudice to other remedies in the contracts. All of these contractual safeguards are aimed at, minimizing regulatory risk and protecting our business. But in terms of preventative measures, we continuously monitor changes in regulations. We have robust regulatory compliance and advisory teams that track draft laws and regulations, and when they're issued for public consultations, they provide comments that are robust and aimed at pushing forward the fairness and predictability that we desire. We think that regulatory advocacy plays a key role. That's why where appropriate, we try to engage with regulators to set forward our position accordingly.
Thank you, Abdul Mohsen. Very interesting. I'd like to turn to Hassan for a moment. I know Aqua Power finances and delivers a large volume of construction, infrastructure, engineering projects. And in those cases, of course, the adherence to budgets and timeframes is paramount for success. I wonder how you, in your practice, in your pursuits, Hassan, how you manage the uncertainty around bringing such projects to fruition.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to welcome my colleagues. It's great to be here, and thank you for the Saudi Center for Commercial Arbitration for having us and having this discussion. It's a very interesting premise indeed, Thomas. In our world, I like to think of it is not how we manage uncertainty, but how uncertainty manages us to a great extent. In Aqua Power, staying on budget and finishing on time for especially mega infrastructure projects is simply a non-negotiable commercial objective because it's fundamental to our mandate. It's important to our customers and our reputation. So we develop and build operational critical infrastructure facilities in more than 14 countries to deliver reliable, affordable, and secure basic utilities, whether it's water or power. As of today, 150 million customers are directly impacted by us, a Saudi company, to supply them with basic utilities. Therefore, managing uncertainty, in addition to a lot of the great points that Abdul Mohsen mentioned in terms of how we navigate the regulations in this very complex sector, it depends on how we deliberately structure our project from the outset and allocate risks with those organizations that are much more suited to manage it. So first, we focus on robust procurement in terms of negotiation and in terms of contracting. That means we have disciplined scopes of work. We have clearly defined technical and quality standards. We ensure the risk allocation is placed and reflected at the right place and translate the operational and the regulatory realities. Many disputes are created when the contract is signed or a little bit afterwards, and managing them after that time is not the most effective way. Another thing is that we emphasize the delivery of certainty over long-term relationship. So repeated engagement with proven partners while ensuring that there are no concentration risks, reduces any misalignment and any opportunistic behavior, and enable us to deliver our commercial mandate to our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. We're really fortunate today to have such a great cross-section of businesses represented here, obviously with Aramco and Aqua Power being two of the leading operators in the kingdom, national champions, both domestically and internationally. We're also privileged to be joined by Venkat from Reliance Industries, which many of you will know as a large, diverse, India-based conglomerate, but of course with many international relations and activities as well. And I know, Venkat, that as a large and diverse conglomerate, you face challenges managing or assisting in the management across multiple different lines of business. I'm wondering how, in that role, how do you avoid being in the role of a firefighter on a daily basis and ideally bringing some discipline to your identification and management of uncertainty?
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Yeah. As you may all know, Reliance is the largest private sector corporation in India. And it's involved in oil and gas in both the exploration and processing space, etc. And we're also into digital retail, both physical and online, financial services, new energy, encompassing solar energy on a 360-degree backward integrated manner, etc. So in today's world, uncertainty is not a disruption, it's a daily reality, and in Indian context especially, all these industries, are highly regulated, and most of them are subject to licenses, from the government of India, etc. And we are also more complex in the sense India has in excess of 22 plus, provinces across the, country, etc. And each, province may have certain specific, regulations, from implementation and commissioning perspective, etc. So at Reliance, thankfully, the culture itself is, to avoid disputes. I would, go to the extent of saying at any cost, and we have also, made sure that most of our, contracting parties, at the procurement or supply, chain, etc. It's generally not a one-off transaction. It is a relationship, that practically, goes forever. Most of our partners are long-term partners in businesses as well. So I would say that, we're in a happy zone in the sense that, our parties generally are those, we all need each other, and therefore, it works quite well. So therefore, our management of the ecosystem is more, from a proactive sense. What we proactively do, I resonate with Aramco's, best practices. We have a very robust policy advocacy team. And this policy advocacy team, from a private sector management perspective, we are probably quite unique in the sense we go and deploy people, in the form of ex-bureaucrats and subject matter specialists, etc., etc. And this team, comprises, full-time employees, consultants, etc. And they, manage and monitor, the regulatory space exceedingly well. And they are involved through the entire journey, right from the consultation process and, inputs, analysis process and the dissemination process, then the open house discussions, etc., all the way till, the legislative stage and thereafter the implementation stage. And then we have, in order to aid, the policy advocacy team, the legal works, with, that team, right from, the inception, in order to, sort of manage that journey, manage the expectations, etc., etc. Then when it comes to implementation, we have for each province a state coordination team, again comprising, subject matter experts, ex-bureaucrats, and, at this province level, etc., etc., and a very, very robust finance, commercial, and accounts team, that goes into the devil in the detail approach, in order to implement there as well. And we, of course, deal with all these teams and alongside with the senior leadership, to manage the expectations right from day one, etc. And we almost always, sort of at least manage the expectations, at least to the level where we know what the risks are ultimately we are going to face. And that's, that's a very well-oiled approach and tried and tested approach that our group is known for in the country.
Thank you, Venkat. Both Venkat and Abdul Mohsen have mentioned in their remarks the importance or the impact of regulation on uncertainty in their businesses. I want to turn to Cici now, who prior to being at Volvo was at Tesla. And Cici, you're obviously in the midst of another heavily regulated industry, also on the cutting edge of technological innovation in today's automotive market. What drives uncertainty in your industry, and how do you and your team stay ahead of it?
Thanks for the question. I think the one ultimate source of uncertainty is actually not from the legal side, it's from the technology for the industry, especially innovative technologies that can disrupt the entire market. Let me give an example. For example, we all know the rise of the new energy vehicle, NEVs. And with these NEVs rapidly advancing, currently still the limitations in battery technology still presents substantial challenges with energy density, charging speed, safety, and life cycle. And that's why you can still see in the market that NEVs and the traditional internal combustion engine vehicles are still both very competitive with its own track. But with innovative technologies such as potentially, for example, solid-state battery, if it goes to mass production, that can shape the entire industry. Potentially, it can not only make the NEVs more competitive, but it can also make those new energy vehicles truly superior to traditional vehicles. So this is a typical example how, a change in the innovation technology can actually shape the entire industry ecosystem, while including all of the legal working in it. So that's how our legal team has always, as one of the priority, is a curiosity in the technology behind the products we support. And the second uncertainty, I would say more traditional, is a fast evolving regulation, because in the auto market, we are subject to so many regulations. And on the other hand, a vehicle has so many parts and so long a distribution chain that any change to the vehicle will make very time consuming and also inter-affected with the other features. So, and unfortunately, if you cannot keep up with the evolving regulation, you are out of the market. You are not suitable for sale in the market. So that's how, for legals in such a heavily regulated industry, it's quite critical. No matter how busy you are, you need to be a little bit idle, set a bit of bandwidth for yourself and try to not only keep up, but also try to anticipate, because you need the time to actually implement such regulations and even lobby for new changes in the regulation. Many other challenges still, but I will just mention these two. Yeah.
Thank you, Cici. Everybody okay? Was that me? I'm sorry if it was. We turn now, I'd like to drill down just a little bit on avoiding and minimizing disputes. In some of the remarks already here and in our preparation, it was apparent that in all of your organizations, that is a key element of your work to maintain corporate calm. But I want to start with you, Ghassan, because in that prep you said something that has really stuck with me since then. Ghassan said to me, once we are in a formal dispute, we lose even if we win. That's a bit sobering for somebody who is a disputes lawyer dedicated to winning, right? So can you explain to me what you meant by that?
Yeah, sure. So there's a second part to that statement that I'd rather not repeat, because it talks about the true winners in a dispute, and I don't think it's going to be popular in this crowd. But we do appreciate our partners in legal professionals and external counsel for their zealous representation, of course, and the value they bring. But what we say is that if you step back and look at the dispute from a business perspective, especially in an industry like ours, even a successful outcome usually comes at a very high price, whether it's a cost of time, whether it's management focus, and in most cases at a very expensive relationship capital. Therefore, in ACWA, we try our best, and we train our in-house counsels as well to, when they advise the business that when a dispute arises, to have a much more of a broader view on the matter than than treating the issue just as a bilateral case. So it's important to step back. It's important to assess the relationship within the context of our broader portfolio, and more importantly, the implication on customers, on off-takers, on lenders, and also future projects as well. Given the scale of what we're building, it is rare that we don't have multiple touch points with adversaries in any of our claim. And we rely on them on delivering the message that we do and the projects that we do. So this allows us to look back for synergies, to look for shared interest across the relationship, rather than treating the dispute as a standalone battle, so to speak. So why do we find that helpful? Because when you start at that mindset, the perspective usually opens paths for resolution. And that would not be visible if you treat each dispute in isolation. And another critical point is that it allows us to do some sort of an early identification and removing the internal bias. One of the biggest risks that we find whenever we deal with any large dispute in any large organization is that the assumption is that we must be right because we are more vested in this outcome. We know the facts, and it's our project, which is something that we continuously work on consciously within the organization, and how to remove that bias. We invite external voices early on in the process and vet our claims, whether those claims are technical, whether they are commercial, whether they are legal, so that we can challenge assumptions before our position hardens, so to speak.
Excellent, thank you. Very good advice there, I'm sure, for many. I'd like to turn now to Venkat. As you already touched on, of course, Reliance is a large and diverse enterprise. I'm wondering whether, given that you're advising across such a range of different businesses, you've been able to identify common processes and management tools that you can implement across the range in a uniform way to minimize and avoid disputes.
Sure, Tom. See, our biggest strength from a process perspective is the leadership, their investment, in time and resources at the very beginning of all our transactions. So typically, all of you know that, the transaction commences, with, of course, an NDA, but the first, most important document is the term sheet. So right from the term sheet, at the stage of term sheet itself, the leadership is so invested that, we will know the contours of what the expectations are, and that is sort of driven into the definitive documents at the subsequent stage, so that, we ensure almost, the critical issues of potential issues and consequential exit requirements, if any, and all the works that typically works in large contracts, etc. Apart from that, we have also structured our respective teams, basis subject matter expertise, etc. For example, each of our business divisions will have 5 to 7 different streams of legal teams, which handles subject matter, contracts, etc. For example, it can be procurement, and within procurement, it can be technology, it can be, equipments and machineries and stuff, and on the other extreme, it can be dedicated only for IP, pertaining to that particular technology, etc., etc. So, and these are all ably supplemented by some standardized, contracting frameworks and centralized repositories as well. And we have roughly around, in the domains that we are in at this point in time, anywhere between 12 years, to 40 years kind of data, to be trained on, etc., etc. And then the leadership culture is, has provided a detailed escalation pathways, for any mitigation, of any potential issues preemptorily, etc. So as I said earlier, our culture and the zone in which we are in, it also aids, quite a lot, as far as we are concerned. And I, in my personal view and in my limited experience, across various industries, when it comes to contracts, at the end of the day, it is what it is. When people put pen to paper, they are at Adam, when agreeing to almost all of these things, etc. When a dispute arises, it's almost always outside the scope of the contract only, and that is where we as a practice follow a commonsensical approach, to try and arrive at some solution which is outside the scope of the contract also, almost always, etc. And from technology perspective, we have a homegrown legal tech platforms for both the contracts lifecycle management and repositories as well. And we have now started piloting a lot of AI tools, and both for contracts lifecycle, contracts repository, and 40-year data being trained on for managing workflows and playbook, etc. And eventually, I guess we will probably go for in the short term, maybe a couple of international tools as well as an Indian tool wherever required, etc. Eventually, we will probably develop our own language model, for our own internal use as well.
Thank you, Venkat. That's interesting and probably something to come back and discuss in a couple of more years to see how that has progressed. Cece, I'd like to turn to you. I know among the panelists today, you have the experience managing both B2B disputes, but also more so than the rest of us, or your other panelists, perhaps also B2C, or business to customer disputes. Do you employ different approaches to avoidance and minimization across those two elements?
You mean in terms of avoiding risks?
Yeah, in terms of how you approach avoiding or managing or minimizing disputes, whether it's business to business or business to customer.
I think maybe the response may surprise a bit, because I think fundamentally, how much these disputes that the legal team is handling is actually not fundamentally subject to the legal aspect, but more subject to the business aspect. For example, I think the two factors that fundamentally decides how much effort your legal team is spending on dispute is, first, is the market good? Are you and your business partner making money? And second, is your product good? Essentially means that are your customers happy? So those two are the key factors that are actually driving the amount of disputes and the complexity of the legal work supporting the disputes. But both factors are not something that the legal team can decide. So what the legal team can decide is something like, I would say, cake is ready. We're making some nice flavors about the cake. And that is, for example, we will integrate the legal team into business meetings, strategic discussions, and market visits, and so that the small incidents can be addressed at early stage. But that requires a team to be having a culture to be easy to work with, not be guarded as a policeman and everyone will try to avoid you. So easy to work with becomes important, rounding back to solving the dispute risk. And the second level is about smart contracting, because as a multinational, we sometimes have a global template. But I found that the country-specific, jurisdiction-specific contracts are so important, because you can utilize the best what is permissible and advantageous in that jurisdiction, which may not be allowed in your headquarters or other countries. And thirdly, I think for B2C business particularly, many companies in the B2C business would have a customer support team. It's traditionally that role. But I would also recommend that a B2C business to have a dedicated dispute resolution team. It doesn't have to be a lawyer, but someone who is sympathetic and responsive and quick, and empower that person or that small team with the ability, authority to immediately solve incidents and refund, replacement, the small claims. That can substantially reduce the amount of dispute. And thirdly, I think that goes back to the legal team finally, is that us legal team will usually train our business team regularly on a routine basis. Everyone has a KPI, how many training you should need to do. But I think on top of this, something very helpful is to have a probably slower quality, because it's very responsive, so it cannot produce a high quality PPT. But immediate small session response when a new piece of legislation affecting the industry comes up, or when there's some cases indicating some recurring internal risks, and very quick action, small legal session trainings will be, I think, very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Cece. Thank you. Abdelmozen, I know Saudi Aramco, you deliver a wide range of long-term, high-value projects over and over, year after year, and that you rely on a number of proven service providers in doing that. I wonder how, when claims arise or when disagreements arise, as they inevitably will, how do you protect those relationships with those important service providers?
Well, look, Tom, Saudi Aramco has been doing this for 90 plus years, so we do recognize the value of long-term relationships. We also recognize that business relationships are prone or susceptible to disputes. That's why we strive to have clear and concise contracts to avoid ambiguity, but we also stipulate a multi-layered internal dispute resolution mechanism to address these matters. This is actually the primary method that we use to resolve disputes. This multi-layered process is undertaken by internal experts who, while they're within Saudi Aramco, they are independent from the underlying claim to ensure an equitable outcome. We believe that the effectiveness of this approach or mechanism is really rooted in one of Aramco's core values of integrity, accountability, and excellence. And I think the effectiveness of this mechanism is really a testament to our commitment to these values. The way we manage dispute risks, we do that in several key ways, but I'll touch on a couple. In terms of operational continuity, we believe that prolonged disputes can delay critical projects and disrupt supply chains and operations. Hence, ensuring this internal mechanism is efficient and equitable can promptly allow the business to continue to operate smoothly. In terms of preserving the relationships, well, we view our contractors and partners as long-term collaborators. In fact, there are contractors that have been working with Aramco for more than 50 years. So, our structured approach helps us maintain a constructive dialogue and avoid adversarial positions. Having said that, however, to be clear, we pride ourselves of having a robust disputes team that, should the matter reach that level, is more than capable to handle these kinds of complex disputes. And our approach, our internal approach is not static. It's continuously refined and enhanced based on best practices, based on developments and regulations, and based on learnings that we see from our own contracts and continuously improving the language that we have there. We recognize that disputes are sometimes inevitable in the complex operations that we have, but the way they are managed determines, the impact on long-term relationships, really. By using this internal mechanism, we not only enhance the operational resilience, but also strengthen the relationships that drive success. This reinforces our reputation as a global industry leader, one that values efficiency, clarity, and predictability. Finally, just to put things in perspective, with thousands of active contracts and hundreds of billions of dollars at any given time, only a very small number of these disputes or the disputes stemming from these contracts actually go to arbitration or litigation. So that's what you have.
Thank you, Abdulmohsen. And having had the experience of advising clients with some of those claims years ago, I can tell you that some do appreciate the effort that Aramco puts into resolving them. But as you noted, disputes are inevitable, at least on occasion. That's why all of us are in the room. We are here at an arbitration conference after all. And I want to turn our conversation now to how your organizations seek to maintain predictable outcomes even when formal disputes do arise. I'll turn first to you, Venkat. Obviously, senior management, executive level, boards, they want predictability. They want to avoid surprises. As you noted already, uncertainty is a daily reality, not so much a disruptor. But what does your team do to try to enhance predictability of outcome once a formal dispute does arise within your organization?
So first and foremost, obviously resolution is the preferred approach, even if it means outside the contract terms, which almost is the case always. And from guidance perspective, we try to sort of look at the optics and the important factors. Should recovery be the most important aspect, or asset protection, or commercial renegotiation, for moving forward, with the existing contract, etc. Then the overall exposure, what it entails, should it be contained, and what are the hidden issues there, etc., is another major factor, we look into. And again, from parties' perspective, whether we should preserve the relationship, or disengagement is inevitable, is also a priority, etc. And then last but not the least, in terms of the whole process, the time frame, which is pretty much unpredictable in most cases, etc., and the costs and the geo-commercial risk and reputational damage, will also add as important factors. So we consider, as a playbook kind of a thing, in different combinations of these factors, and apply to a given situation. And in our experience so far, we have not had a significant corporate commercial cross-border dispute, so far in the last 25, 30 years or so. And thanks to one, all of these, cultural issues, from our business perspective, playing a big role. And two, our limited disputes, in the cross-border stage will also have, will only have, something like a government being another party, etc. Other than that, we don't really have any disputes, etc. And applying these factors in a real-time basis, I myself, in the last 10 plus years or so, have managed to disengage, as friends, with some limited exposure, and with the promise that we can re-engage again. And these are all very big, software giants or data analytics giants, etc., and contracts involving tens of billions of dollars, worth of products and services, and so on and so forth. And that, in effect, is from management perspective, nobody's really looking into the arbitration mechanics or dispute resolution mechanics as a process. They are more into, what is the practical outcome considering all of this, and that is the culture we have been trained on, and we are moving on those lines.
Thank you, Venkat. Cece, in your experience, how do you, or how can your management teams move beyond a reactive sort of fight or flight approach to disputes and focus on a more systematic method of ensuring predictability?
Thanks, Tom. Talking about systematic predictability, I think I'll go back to, we need to build predictability not only into how we handle legal disputes, but instead build predictability into how we do business itself. And it starts with the very early stage of choosing the business model and designing some initiation. And at the very early stage, when you start to design a contract or a project, I think the task for legal team is not only to lay down the options, like is this an asset deal or equity deal, you need to also lay down what are the risks and the consequences associated with each path, so that the business teams not only look at commercial gain, speed, how good we can after, if this is successful. So we need to paint the picture that is a full awareness of the potential losses behind it. With that, I think no matter what is chosen, In the end, it could be that a high risk approach is chosen in the end for commercial reason, but at least the entire organization is prepared, and because risk has been mapped. And in terms of the second phase, when some initial incidents or disputes happens, I myself would prefer to front load my legal budget into the early case assessment. I would prefer to making sure that the very first move we make in response to a dispute is already the optimal one, having considered all the future potential scenarios. I think a poor approach will be beginning, you make intuitive actions in the beginning, and later on, when you go into the dispute and discover that all the initial actions are misaligned with your purpose. And ultimately, when a matter really goes to a dispute, then the question comes to, we actually should think more strategy than legal, because legal's victory is only, to myself, it's only a tool. It's not the purpose itself. So for each case, we would analyze what's the strategy behind the case. Is this, we want a swift exit, or we want delaying techniques, or we want preserving relationship, or we want to set a good example. All those different commercial strategies behind will define your different actions. And with the commercial actions, commercial strategy designed, we make sure that the legal team, in-house team, or legal tools is only a tool, one of the toolbox serving the broader business horizon or intention. And so to conclude, I think predictability for the legal team is not about winning every fight. It is about ensuring that every decision is made with eyes open, and every case is met with immediate clarity, and every action aligns with commercial strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Cece. Excellent insights there, especially against stumbling by accident into a dispute, a formal dispute. It's certainly something that has to be carefully managed. And Abdelmosen, it put me in mind of your comments about how much work Aramco puts into avoiding a formal dispute. And I wonder now, when they do arise, even despite that effort that you've made, whether there's still an opportunity for a negotiated resolution, or is it just time for scorched earth litigation?
Well, at the risk of giving a typical lawyer's answer, I would say it depends. The approach we have is going to be rooted in proportionality and, really common sense. We strive, always to resolve these issues in a constructive manner and avoid adversarial positions. But when we're faced with a dispute that goes to an arbitration, at that stage, we would have gone through the processes that I mentioned earlier. So we would have a pretty clear picture and a good grasp as to the positions and the potential exposure. So, we would normally have a good idea as to whether or not a negotiated settlement would be a good approach. There's a cost-benefit, angle to that. There's precedential value as well. Our preference is always, to resolve these matters even when the proceedings start, but we're always ready to vigorously protect our interests, to align with our strategic and broader strategic objectives and operational strategies. When a dispute goes to a formal setting, it's often more complex and more, resource intensive. That's why, again, we still feel that there's a room for a negotiated settlement. We emphasize that by, as I said, the pre-arbitral mechanisms, but we also treat these as not a mere procedural matter, but a genuine attempt at reaching settlement. And we design our contracts to allow for settlement even during a formal dispute. In practice, arbitration tribunals, and in fact, for that matter, courts in the kingdom, do allow for flexibility in having these kinds of settlement discussions, granted they're in good faith and they say they stay proceedings, they allow for that to happen. So negotiating a settlement can be the right approach in certain situations, and that's really driven by commercial judgment and practicality. In summary, I think our objective is genuine attempt to resolve disputes at the most appropriate stage, balancing between efficiency, fairness, and credibility with our stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Abdul Mohsen. Hassan, you get the last word. You noted, of course, as I mentioned before, that the view that once you're into a dispute, even if you win, you lose, but once you are into one, what do you do to try to maintain predictability of the outcome?
Well, Thomas, having done this for a long time in the corporate world, when a dispute arises, the only predictable thing that you know is that if you win the case, it's because you had a good case to begin with. But if you lose it, it's because you have terrible lawyers. So that's usually the guiding principle when it comes to predictability in a corporate world. Look, I mean, a formal dispute should never arrive as a surprise. Long before it becomes a reality, we expect that it has already triggered some sensitivities in the system when it comes to our dispute preparation program. And we mobilize during the claim process, commercial, legal, technical, all relevant stakeholders to look into it. So for the benefit of preservation, collection of documents and important matters. So when a dispute formally commences, the objective is not simply to pursue a legal mandate, but to look at it collectively as an issue. So when we manage the process, we enter our dispute into a register that gets updated on a monthly basis. Because as you go through a dispute, discoveries happens and you discover much more about the strength and weakness of your positions. This gets tailored into our registers. We do our necessary adjustments, whether that's in terms of provisioning from a financial standpoint or looking into other narrative as far as how the facts unfolded. Of course, we always keep our stakeholders, our customers, the splash zone of our portfolios informed of where the dispute is heading, again, to the extent applicable under regulations, and at the same time satisfy our disclosure mandate as a capital company. And often enough, we use this registers as a pretense to look for opportunities for settlement. More often than not, we usually seek settlement opportunities when we believe we have a stronger case than the other way around. And we do that for the purpose of preserving the relationship. But unfortunately, it doesn't come across that way whenever you have these discussions, and I think that's why having reputable external counsels on the other side who have a sense of reliability and integrity for their clients and the interests of their clients is something paramount and something we look and examine in every case we undertake. So that we preserve that relationship at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Hassan. And thank you all for your contributions today. It's been a very illuminating panel, and I invite the audience to join me in thanking you in the usual way.